You probably think you have a type, but that magnetic, irresistible pull you feel towards someone who is always just slightly out of reach, that isn't fate, and it certainly isn't a personality preference. When you meet someone who is emotionally unavailable, your body experiences a surge of urgency and hypervigilance. Because of the intensity of those physiological reactions, your brain mislabels that panic as profound romantic chemistry. This diagram maps the anxious avoidant trap. The anxious partner equates closeness with survival, feeling an imperative to close the gap. But the avoidant partner equates distance with safety. As the anxious partner pushes in, the avoidant partner instinctively pulls away. To keep the connection from snapping entirely, the anxious partner begins to overfunction. They abandon their own boundaries, constantly read the room, and perform exhausting emotional labor just to maintain a baseline level of contact. We stay in these relationships even as they diminish our mental health because the loop feels like the only available strategy for safety. We aren't choosing pain. We are simply exhausting ourselves trying to resolve the tension of the chase. If your early caregivers were inconsistent or emotionally unavailable, your brain had to write a specific survival script to cope with that environment. That script taught your nervous system that love requires constant effort. It taught you that connection is something you have to pursue, negotiate, and earn by closely monitoring another person's mood. As an adult, your nervous system actively seeks out partners who replicate that exact distance. The brain prioritizes what is familiar over what is actually healthy, because familiar means predictable. Looking at this scale, we can see the load-bearing pillar of the anxious avoidant relationship. It relies on a severe imbalance of power. On one side is the massive, dense, emotional labor of the anxious partner. On the other, the minimal investment of the avoidant partner. The avoidant partner remains entirely static and safely independent, while the anxious partner exerts constant, draining effort to keep them connected. The dynamic survives entirely on the anxious partner's willingness to carry the emotional weight of two people. Under those conditions, genuine, reciprocal intimacy cannot exist. This imbalanced cycle repeats endlessly, draining the anxious partner day after day, until they finally hit a wall of total emotional burnout. The body simply cannot sustain that level of chronic stress. Living in a state of hypervigilance, constantly walking on eggshells, and experiencing panic over a single unanswered text message eventually causes the system to fracture. In the exhaustion of that burnout, a harsh realization sets in. The anxious partner sees that their frantic attempts to create closeness are the exact triggers causing the avoidant partner to retreat further. This forces a choice. They can continue the cycle of self-destruction, or they can deliberately drop their assigned role in the psychological play. Hitting rock bottom in this dynamic is incredibly painful, but it serves a crucial purpose. It acts as the necessary biological catalyst for the anxious partner to finally reclaim their emotional agency. This brings us to the circuit breaker, the moment the anxious partner decides to stop chasing. This reflects a self-anchored presence, a decision to withdraw the frantic emotional labor that once sustained the connection. In practice, no more double texting, no more begging for clarity. It is the quiet, internalized acceptance of the distance the other person asked for. When the pursuit stops, the avoidant partner's reality shifts. They built their entire relational architecture assuming they will always be chased. Without that emotional counterweight, their defenses collapse under their own unsupported weight. Because the distance no longer grants them control over the anxious partner's emotional state, the avoidant partner is forced to face their own isolation. By refusing to play the chaser, the anxious partner removes the leverage. They pull the relationship out of a game of control and into the unforgiving light of reality. For a recovering anxious attacher, experiencing secure love for the first time feels completely alien. It lacks the adrenaline-fueled chaos of the trap. Healthy connection is marked by consistency, reliability, and calm mutual availability. In fact, to a dysregulated nervous system accustomed to high-stakes drama, true safety initially just feels like boredom. Moving past the need for that drama requires intentional self-choice. Prioritizing your own stability becomes the necessary antidote to the childhood wound of unworthiness. You eventually realize that the strongest act of love isn't proving your loyalty by running after someone who expects you to chase them. By choosing self-respect and setting firm, quiet boundaries, you reclaim your own emotional life. You are no longer participating in a dynamic that requires your own disintegration to survive.